Thank you. I would like to welcome everyone to the March 2024 Council meeting. I declare the meeting open at 6:36 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We offer our respect to the elders of these traditional lands and to them, to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people past and present. For the mobile phone, I kindly remind everyone to switch phone off or turn to silent. With the recording of the meeting proceeded, I advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, your presence might be recorded. In accordance with Council governance rule, meeting may not be photographed, filmed, or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. So there's no...
We don't have any requests.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, apologize. Councillor, are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? I can't see any, so there's no apology. So leave absent, so it's no one. Now, Councillor, if you have any conflict of interest in this meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mayor, I do have a conflict of interest in regard to the CEO performance review
Okay.
appointment.
Okay, when we come to that.
9.10.
Thank you. 9.10, yep. Okay. Okay, apart from that, according with the Local Government Act 2020, I asked if any councillor have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the item, and I know that the CEO have a conflict of interest in 9.10, reappointing of independent member of the Chief Executive Officer, Employment Matter Advisory Committee. So tonight we have a suspension of standing order to acknowledge the passing of Mr. John Wywick, OAM. I could call for Councillor Crawford. I call for the councillor to move a motion to suspend standing order to enable council to acknowledge the passing of John Wywick, OAM. Councillor Crawford. Could I call for the second the motion? Councillor Clark, the Deputy Mayor. I put the motion into the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion is carried.
Over me?
Yep.
Thank you,
Councillor,
Mayor.
go for it. Yep.
I'd like to note the passing of John Whitewick, OAM. He was the group leader at 2nd Footscray Scout Group and also the District Commissioner. He served in scouting for 35 years in our community. and that's obviously why he got his Order of Australia Medal for his services to scouting. He was also the recipient of the Silver Kangaroo Award, which is the highest serving award for a leader in the scouting movement. So I knew John for a few years. He was very welcoming, very inclusive man, very committed to scouting and to our community. So very fitting that we mention him here tonight. I know that John's legacy is very much continuing. His daughter Michelle is my daughter's cub leader, and his son Matthew is also a scout leader in the area. So yeah, to John, thank you for your services to this community, and rest in peace.
Thank you. Is anyone, John, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And can I just echo the sentiments of Councillor Crawford? I had the pleasure of first meeting John and his daughter Michelle when his daughter Michelle first won the very prestigious award of, I think, Young Volunteer in 2007, in my very first mayoralty year. This man was remarkably committed, and for decades, remarkably committed to the scouting movement. And beyond scouting, I have to say, councillors, committed to his community. And that legacy of community service has been remarkably taken up by his daughter, who continues on in exactly the same vein, exactly the same spirit as her late father. He was an absolute stalwart in the scouting movement, and I think really has to be seen as a model, a great role model for all, regardless of background, regardless of walk or in life or station in life. A man that all of us could draw much strength from, and I think much inspiration from, in a way of how to do it, how to serve your community. Vale, John, Warwick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone know John? I might like to say a few words. I think that we have a civic award night. I think John was there as well, even that, he's not well, but he's always come to the community. I have an opportunity to meet his daughter last week because they received stipend and our council support them for the new kitchen for the scout. And I mean, just, for his history and legacies, as Councillor Clark said, it's, always for the community and the children, particularly, the scout, for, all the young leader come up, and it's making so much emotion about that, all his work. And I just really, I sent to our Maribyrnong City Council would like to, on behalf of our councillor and the community, send condolence to the Wywick family, and thank you very much. Everyone. Yeah. Okay, could I call for the council to move the motion to resume standing order? Councillor Crawford and Councillor Clark second. Could I put the motion to the vote? All those in favour? Yeah, okay, I declare the motion carried. Public question time. We now move to the public question time for up to 15 minutes. I would like to take opportunity to explain how public question time will proceed. This is the only time question from the public will be accepted at this meeting. And this is how public question time works. Members of the public are asked to submit their question prior to the commencement of the meeting. Any matter can be raised so long as it is according with the council's governance rule. A maximum of 3 questions per person is permitted. As a chair, I will decide who answers the question. Public question time is limited for 15 minutes unless an extension of the public question time is resolved by the council. So, could I read the question? And
certainly, and we have a number of questions.
Yeah, there we have a number of the questions from the resident. Okay, this question has come from Muriel Alexander, asked the following question. There are 14 reserved or park in the Maribyrnong, Mason Braybrook area. Why do only 5 have public toilet when 13 have barbecue facility, which are used regularly by family with children and older people? CEO, would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Mayor. People might not know that we do have a Maribyrnong public toilet plan, 2019 to 29, and the locations are listed there and are based on park hierarchy as outlined in our open space strategy of 2014. Regional and municipal parks are given priority over neighbourhood and local parks, given the catchment each type of park serves. Council's Capital Works program aims to deliver 1 public toilet from the plan each year. Council has recognised the need to review the public toilet plan 2019 to 2029 to ensure we equitably address community needs. The mid-term review will be undertaken this calendar year with community consultation likely to commence around July. The review will provide an opportunity for the community to provide feedback regarding the most in-demand locations.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, CEO.
Excuse me,
Yeah?
through the
Yes,
chair.
yeah.
In relation to our public toilet policy, can I just, Chair, councillors, acknowledge the fabulous contribution of Mr. Ken Betts in really helping us understand what the public toilet needs are of our community. He has championed this matter for a long time. He's unfortunately moved on over to Brimbank, but he's a man who has really helped this council over a very long period of time to understand what the community needs are in this particular domain.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Councillor.
Your Worship.
Right. So the question number 2, the Footscray Park play space has been closed since the flood 2022. Now that's stated to be closed permanently. While understanding the issues of 2 drowning in 2021, the play space surrounded by the substantial fence has been saved before and after the drowning, and yet has now been deemed unsafe. Pie Maker Park and Jensen Reserve are not surrounded by a fence but in close proximity to the river. Would it not make more sense to enclose the ornamental pond which are less utilizing by family and retain the play space for the many families who need somewhere safe for their children to play and picnic? Would I ask Mr. Patrick Jett, Director from Infrastructure, to answer that? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Council sought expert advice on the response to the drowning incidents that recommended a number of actions that are now underway. These recommendations ensure that the heritage ponds are managed and maintained in a manner that provides the safest possible environment and respects the heritage nature of the ponds and surrounding parklands. These actions were supported by the coroner's findings of September 2023. The play space, in line with Council's resolution of 12th of December 2023, is now closed, with its future relocation being considered.
Thank you, Mr. Jett. Now, this is next question, from Jessie McNellis asked the following question. As a local resident near to Ryco project on Whitehall Street, I was horrified to hear Councillor Sarah Carter advocating for them to increase the car parking at this project. Available parking leads to the increased car ownership, which leads to increasing traffic. The road around Maribyrnong are already a nightmare, and adding car park or new dense housing development will make traffic much worse. How does the council plan to address the increase in car ownership in the city of Maribyrnong so residents can have safe, livable and pleasant street? Could I ask the Director of Lodge, Joe Mellon, to answer that? Is that right?
Thank you, Mayor, through the Chair. So whilst Council cannot directly control car ownership, it does have a range of policies and strategies in place which seek to reduce reliance on cars. Such strategies include the Integrated Transport Strategy, which is currently under review, the Bicycle Strategy, Walking Strategy and the Climate Emergency Strategy. As mentioned, Council is currently in the process of reviewing its integrated transport strategy with a view to strengthening initiatives around modal shift between different transport modes. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
And through the
Jeff,
chair,
sure.
I might respond because it was addressed
Sure.
to me.
Yep,
And I
thank
stand
you.
by those comments because when we see developments that are only providing less than 40% of apartments with a car space, I really fear with the totality of development that we're seeing in Footscray that we'll see continued congestion on our streets, and we only have to look to the Josephs Road precinct and the issue there. One of the challenges we face is we address and assess every planning application individually as per the planning scheme. So what I'm really interested in is, as we know, car ownership is increasing from the census data. What is our future plan if more so we're getting developments put before us that do not include car parking? I'm genuinely concerned about this, and in addition to the integrated transport strategy, I will be bringing forward a motion to this council to look at the long-term planning requirements and strategies to address that. There are some innovative things that are happening with the car share in private developments, but I think we need to be taking a citywide approach. And I know I've had discussions with Councillor Hawkera about this, who's also very interested about how we do plan for it, because when less than 40% of apartments in a large-scale development have no car space, I really fear, and I know from personal experience from looking at an apartment that had no car space, and of the many people looking to buy that, everyone was wondering where they were going to park their car. So this is a real problem that we are facing. It's not exclusive to the city of Maribyrnong. A lot of inner city councils are facing it, but I do stand by those challenges. Just not providing car parking and expecting people to change their behaviour is not a sustainable solution.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carter. The next question for Mrs. McNellis. A single parking space can add $50,000 to the cost of an apartment. This cost either come out of the quality of the apartment or the affordability of the apartment. Will Council commit to reducing car parking requirement in apartment development to keep the price of providing these apartments down? Could Mrs. Loja Joe answer that?
Planning and
Yeah.
Environment Director.
Through the chair, as Councillor Carter mentioned, the Maribyrnong planning scheme currently sets the preferred rates for the car parking, with different rates applying across different areas in the municipality, including central Footscray. It's in deciding whether or not a supported reduction in car parking would apply to development. There is a range of factors that have to be taken into account, including proximity to high frequency public transport and access to services and access to jobs, to name a few. There is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to car parking provision in the city. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now the next question is Samantha Meredith asked the following question. Can the council provide an estimated timeline for implementation of line marking on road within the Joseph Road precinct? It's your,
I can answer.
yeah, can you
Yes.
see you? Yeah.
Through the chair, council aims to have the line marking completed by the end of March, so we're nearly there.
Okay, thank you. The next questions come from Samantha. Can the council provide detail on plan on to install speed signage in the Joseph Ross precinct? Can you answer that?
So the posted speed limit is a major control device that requires approval from the Department of Transport and Planning, DTP. Council's currently liaising with DTP to get approval for an Area 40 limit to be installed for the precinct. Subject to their final approval, Council is planning to install Area 40 speed limit signs at the Hopkins Street entrances at Whitehall Street, Hallenstein Street and Josephs Road. And we have had an indication from the responsible minister that she is supportive of this action, but there's a process to go through with the department first. Council officers will monitor this proposed change following implementation and determine whether further speed limit reductions are warranted. In addition, construction speed limits will be used at appropriate locations during the reconstruction of Josephs Road.
Thank you, CEO. The next question from Samantha. Can the council provide transparency regarding ownership detail and plan for the site that house numerous portable building and the car park site on the 6th and 4 Nelson Place, Footscray in the Joseph Road precinct?
Thank you, Mayor. While council can't share specific property ownership details due to privacy laws, council can advise that 4 and 6 Nelson Place appear to have the same landowner, while 2 Nelson Place has a different landowner. 2 Nelson Place, the larger parcel on the corner, has planning permission for a primary residential development containing approximately 580 apartments in 4 towers ranging in heights from 14 to 26 stories. Neither 4 nor 6 Nelson Place have planning permission for redevelopment, with previous permissions for redevelopment having expired several years ago.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Now, the next question comes from Brett Warren. Ask for the following question. Number 1, has council designed for the Hopkins, Hollinston, Moreland Street, signal line intersection between approved by the Department of Transport and Planning? Could I ask the Director from Infrastructure, Jet, answer that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. The functional layout plan for the intersection upgrade with signals is currently being finalised with DTP. This will inform the detailed design, which is aiming to be completed by the end of 2024.
Thank you. The next question. Has the council approaching the owner of the underdevelopment site at 2 Nelson Place, corner of Joseph Road and Nelson Place, with regard to the condition of the site, particularly the fence line along Nelson Place, which presents an unacceptable safety hazard? Would you answer that too, Mr. Jet?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor.
Yeah. Sorry. That's all right.
Thank you. So Council is actively working with the Joseph Road Precinct Action Group to address identified safety and amenity issues within the precinct. In regards to this particular site, we are currently liaising with the owner's representative relating to the issues mentioned in the question.
Okay, thank you. The question number 3, has council commencing the necessary work required in order to set a further reduced speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour on the Joseph Road precinct streets? Could I ask you to answer that again, Mr. Jet? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So similar to a previous answer, officers are currently liaising with DPT to finalise approval for an Area 40 limit to be installed in the precinct, which is consistent with other local roads. And subject to approval, we'll install Area 40 speed limit signs at the precinct entrances and monitor this proposed change to determine whether further speed limit reductions are warranted.
Okay, thank you. Now, this next question comes from Mr. Dean Huston, asking the following question on behalf of the council's watch. Number 1, what amount of waste enforcement costs in the current financial year, 2023-2024, has the council including the waste levy charged to the resident, if any?
Through you, Mayor, enforcement activities related to waste are associated with illegally dumped rubbish, which are not included in the waste charge levy. In terms of compliance for curbside recycling and minimising contamination, we are taking a community education approach as part of the curbside transition to a 4-bin system, which is the direction of the state government, but we're not charging that through our waste charge.
Okay, thank you, CEO. Could I ask Councillor to have 15-minute extension, Councillor Clark and Councillor Carter? That's right, okay, and could I have the mover or in favour? And our decisions carry. Okay, thank you. So the next one. The next question, what amount of revenues has Council included in the current financial year, 2023 and 24, from waste enforcement action?
Through you, Mayor, we'd like to take this question on notice and provide a response in writing to Mr. Hurliston.
Okay, thank you. Now, question number 3, has that revenues been offset in the waste levy or applied to council general revenue streams?
Through you, Mayor, the waste enforcement actions, as outlined in question 1, are a local laws issue. Therefore, any revenue is based on infringements, but this does not cover the cost of the service. The waste levy is for the delivery of curbside collections only. We are different to other councils who have included a number of costs in their waste levy. That's not in ours.
Thank you, Sue. Right. The next question comes from Mr. Lock Farm. Ask the following question. What is council doing to fix fence, clean and sanitize the land in the township? What remained untouched since the Maribyrnong flood 18 months ago? Would council please advise is work scheduled to complete this public safety work given the flood water was rated a category 3 black water?
Thank you, Mayor. I can answer that. Where all fences adjoin council land, such as park or recreation reserve, these have all been reinstated. The Environment Protection Authority undertook sampling at multiple sites throughout the flood-affected area. The only issue was E. coli from sewerage, and that is no longer of concern. Further information regarding the sampling and results can be found on the EPA website, and we will provide a link to that website in the minutes.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, CEO. The second question, what is the status of council agreed program to mow nature strip in the Maribyrnong township after the Maribyrnong flood? This program seemed to have stopped. Council agreed to this program through the CRC to support residents' security from looting, is the matter of public safety and the build amenity and support well-being of residents given a number of unoccupied property. The supporting reasons are unchanged.
Through you, Mayor, the recovery program was delivered in 2023, where the commitment from council was to undertake this mowing program twice across the Maribyrnong township. In some areas, nature strips were mown more times, 3 or more. Inspection of nature strips do not necessarily support the above claim. That's the view of officers.
Thank you. Question number 3, council promised to fill and re-level dangerous Google in the native strip. This is Google's arose from the excavator removing flood damaged household items, and many of Google's will require equipment like small digger to fill and re-level native strips since they are large, up to 50 centimeters in diameter, and the Google's hole are a significant risk to the resident and the public safety. Council is on notice of these risks and is liable for any personal injury or property harm that arise. This risk is made greater since council had not completed mowing work as promised, and many of the holes are invisible under overgrown grass. Please explain. You answer that,
yes, through you, Mayor. Since the flood, we have responded to multiple community requests to level or repair nature strips. So I would invite the questioner to provide us with those details so we can investigate and make good.
Okay, thank you. So that comes from Mr. Locke, isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, I think I know. Mr. Locke, so hopefully you hear and take a note on that. Now, the next question from Mr. Sebastian D'Agostino asked the following question. Would council please release a public set of financial statements to identify for residents, A, all government grant for flood relief is had received since 14 October 2022 for flood recovery. B, all expenditure fund by council of the flood relief grant fund since the 14 October 2022. C, all council's plan budgeted used for relief from the grants fund. Thank you. Could I ask the director for the environment?
Planning and Environment.
Ms. Director Laura Jo Mellon,
Thank you, Mayor. As reported in the December 23 flood recovery newsletter, Council received a recovery grant of $710,000 from the State and Commonwealth Government. The funding received under this grant must be utilised in accordance with the grant guidelines and focuses on building community resilience and community connections. Funding can't be used to provide financial assistance, flood relief to residents or businesses, or utilised for physical infrastructure to mitigate flood impact. Through the decision-making process with the CRC in Community Recovery Committee in 2023, the following events have been delivered with funded through this grant: Meet Your Neighbour events, David Younger mental health support sessions, multiple drop-in sessions with building, planning, legal aid, insurance industry and support representatives such as CoHealth and Anglicare, the first anniversary acknowledgement event, free Tai Chi at Maribyrnong Community Centre, and a barbecue event with volunteers from the SES and the Salvation Army. The Community Recovery Officer Programme from the State and Commonwealth Government provided funding for a recovery support officer role for a total of $128,000, and this has been fully expended. In addition, Local Government Victoria provided $1 million through the Council Flood Support Fund to assist with clean-up and the reinstatement activities on Council parks, reserves and assets. So just in terms of the expended funds, the Recovery Hubs programme, we've expended $85,298 of the $710,000, with ongoing expenditure expected on that grant until June 2025 when it is ending. We also received a youth mental health grant in 22-23, which was for $15,000, which has been fully expended. And there was a neighbourhood house grant, which we received funding for in 2022-23 financial year as well, and that was $12,000, and that has been fully expended. In terms of Part C, as mentioned previously, Council is unable to provide relief to residents and businesses or mitigation studies or works from the funds received from the recovery grants. However, the following recovery positions and programmes have been planned or have been executed. So the employment of a specific flood recovery manager from the Recovery Hubs programme, which was appointed on the 12th of March 2024 and will run until the 30th of June 2025 when the funding ends. Approximately $10,000 for a youth arts recovery programme with Victoria University and Southern Cross University, which is scheduled to begin after Easter. And the development of a preparedness programme to provide residents with an understanding of flood risk and preparedness activities that they can take to protect their property. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. So the second question, would Council please disclose all current proposed grant applications for flood relays? Would you like to answer that too?
Through the Mayor. So at this point, Council doesn't have any current grant applications in process for flood relief specifically.
Thank you. The third question, what strategy has the Council developed or are developing since the October 2022 Maribyrnong flood to mitigate major or minor flooding in the area? Can you answer that too? So,
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Flood mitigation was a recommendation of the Maribyrnong River Flood Review, which was undertaken by an independent panel for Melbourne Water. Council, so there will be outcomes of that in terms of mitigation that Melbourne Water are responsible for as the floodplain manager. Council is working with the SES and Melbourne Water, however, to deliver an in-person information session and some door knocking to ensure residents and businesses are aware of the flood risk in their area and the actions that can be undertaken to mitigate those impacts.
Thank you. Now, the next question is from Pauline Aston. Asked the following question: would Council please explain why the new MEMP, Municipal Emergency Management Plan for 2023-25, does not have a current complying municipal storm and flood plan, MSEFP, given there was a major flood 18 months ago and Sierra had a medium risk rating for flood and storm event? Would you
Yes, I'm happy to answer that, Mayor. The MEMP, or the Municipal Emergency Management Plan, is actually not a council document. It is the responsibility of the Maribyrnong Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, and it is not a council plan. We will certainly direct this to the MEMPC to answer, and a response will be provided in writing following the meeting to Pauline Ashton.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next question from Pauline. Would council please A, confirm that the only municipal storm and flood plan now applying in Maribyrnong is the old non-complying plan date December 2021 linked to the new MEMP? The second question, A is B, advise where resident can view this document since its date it will be maintaining on council's website. Can you answer that?
Yes, and
Madam
thank you for this further question. The development of the plan is the responsibility of the Victorian SES. The Maribyrnong Flood and Storm Plan can be found on the Victorian SES website at www.ses.vic.gov.au alongside the Maribyrnong Local Flood Guide. A link to the plan can also be found on Maribyrnong City Council's website.
Thank you. The third question, council has set a 3-year target from December 23 under the new MEMP to get a new Maribyrnong flood and storm emergency plan. Given it's now 18 months since the Maribyrnong flood, can you please provide council project plan with the timeline and milestone to explain to at-risk residents why council is forecasting a further 3-year delay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think you'll find that it's not council reporting on a delay, but the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee is established, as we said before, under the Emergency Management Act of 2013. A council staff member chairs the meeting, however, the committee does not report to council. Council is not responsible for the MEMP. It's not our document, it's a combined document. This question will be directed to the committee again for a direct response.
Thank you. Next question is come from Eleonora Goulon. Asked the following question. Number 1, certain planning permits issued by council, including one after the flood, including the Melbourne water condition under section 173 that give a complete indemnity in favour of Melbourne water of the risk associated with flood damage of the property and its content. What is the council position on the impact of this condition on residents and the future sale of property in Maribyrnong, given that 1, it's render the property uninsured and therefore most likely unable to get mortgage finance if an owner wants to finance a purchase or a development, and number 2, it will impact the long-term devaluation of the property in Maribyrnong. Would you like to answer that?
I might hand to the Director of
Director of
Planning and Environment.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's not unusual for referral authorities such as Melbourne Water with responsibility for key infrastructure to require conditions as part of a planning permit process. In this specific instance, the application was for a single dwelling. The permit trigger was the land subject to inundation overlay within the planning scheme, and Melbourne Water is a determining referral authority under that overlay. Therefore, council is required to seek their involvement in any permitting decision, and council must apply all permit conditions that are required by authorities such as Melbourne Water. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, next question comes from Jennifer Driver. Ask the following question. Number 1, what is the basis of council decision to require flood-affected residents to apply for a rate rebate instead of directing its planning building team to determine affected property by surveys?
I'll answer that,
Yeah,
Mayor.
thank you.
So the process as outlined in the legislation, section 169 of the Local Government Act 1989, which is still relevant for this part of the legislation, mandates that residents apply for a rebate. So we do need residents to apply for a rebate. We've made this information into a simple form, and the evidence required is a single statement from the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
The next question, Mayor, if I may
Yeah,
point out,
sorry,
has already been
Madam Mayor,
responded
we require an
to.
extension of time.
Okay, could I ask the council to move a motion to extend public question time? Councillor Tran, and second, Councillor Clark. And could I have people, the motion, yeah, all those in favour, and the motion is carried. So, I think the next question is already answered. Might I read it out as well?
You
yeah,
may.
Yeah, okay. I think question from Mrs. Jennifer Driver. She also asked the question. Would council please confirm that the only municipal storm and flood plan now applying in Maribyrnong is the old non-complying plan dates of December 2021 linked to the new MEMP? Question mark. B, advise where resident can view the document since its date. It will be maintained on council's website. And I think that question already respond to. The next question, number 3. How has council factored the EPA's development of the TEDI for flood recovery? Would you like to answer that, directors?
Thank you, Mayor. So the TEDI or TEDI tool is being developed between the EPA in collaboration with the University of Adelaide. They are currently developing the tool. The Maribyrnong community were asked to contribute to the development of this tool. It is not currently in use, and the survey responses from Maribyrnong residents have not been provided to Council as they were confidential. Council have, however, had discussions with the EPA and the University of Adelaide in respect of the tool and potential future applications. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, the next question comes from Lisa Quincy. Ask the following question. Number 1, Council Maribyrnong Municipal Emergency Management Plan, MEMP, date 25th October 2023, state there has been no exercise conducted since the 8th December 2022, but note that activations are not disclosed. Would Council please A, list all exercise and activation concerning flooding event in the 18 months since the flood on the 14th October 2022 under the MEMP. B, list the exercise and activation currently scheduled under the MEMP. Yeah, would you like to answer that, directors? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So as previously discussed, Council is not responsible for the Municipal Emergency Management Plan. The document is prepared by multi-agency collaboration, and the Municipal Emergency Management Plan is approved by the North West Metro Regional Emergency Management Planning Committee, not Maribyrnong City Council. The Municipal Emergency Management Plan does not list all activations such as single house fires, but does list major emergencies including flooding that activate the plan, and these are listed in Table 2 on page 15 of the plan. The Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee have 2 exercises listed for consideration this year: response and relief during an emergency in the newly built Westgate Tunnel, and an evacuation exercise involving large numbers of people across from Cood Island. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Now, the question number 2 also comes from Lisa. Come from Lisa. Yeah. What written confirmation has Council received from SES as the control agency for flood that is training for volunteer responding to a flood in Maribyrnong is fit for the purpose, given a Council MEMP, including acknowledgement of the paramount need to keep volunteers safe? B, 95% of SES response is by volunteers. And C, agency with responsibility under the MEMP should provide written confirmation of their capability and commitment to meet their obligation. CEO, would you like to answer that?
Through the Mayor. Response agencies, and I think we've explained that it's not council's MEM.
Yep.
Response agencies are not required to report internal capacity and capability information to the MEMPC. This is undertaken at a statewide level, and Council is not provided with that information, so we don't have it.
Okay. Number 3, Council MEMP state successful recovery require a plan, coordinator and adaptive approach between community and partner agency based on continuing assessment of impact and need. Would Council please A, list the number of meetings on the Municipal Emergency Planning Committee which Council chair, and B, provide a copy of the minute of all those meetings, and if Council does not consider this important, can be provided. Would Council please set out the specific legislative basis for withholding this information? CEO?
Thank you, Mayor, and if I could just clarify again, it is not the council's MEMP. It's not owned by the council. It's a collaboration between many agencies. The MEMPC meetings are held quarterly. Council are happy to discuss the provision of the minutes with the MEMPC and pass on the request, and we'll follow up with the resident who submitted the question directly.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Antoinette Bufalino has submitted 3 public questions. However, one of these questions is in the form of a statement. While council governance rule allow for the provision of public question, it does not provide a statement to be made. And I thank you, Mrs. Bufalino, for the statement. However, wish to advise that the statement will not be read out at the meeting. So, question number 1. Does Council agree with Melbourne Water's submission to the Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry in the report that recommended that the Arundel retarding basin option is not considered further? With the cost of the option and environmental, cultural heritage and upstream impact rendering the business case unviable. Can you answer that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council's own submission to the Parliamentary Inquiry and the Melbourne Water Review addresses the need to consider catchment-wide mitigation. Council cannot comment on the details of the work that Melbourne Water discussed in their submission at this time, as we have not undertaken a detailed assessment of the project that's mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Question number. Okay, another question. Since the October flood 2022, what has Council and Melbourne Water actually invested in to implement any sort of project to protect the city of Maribyrnong and its residents from further disasters from any sort of flood, especially that one or more floods occur prior to October 2022, and both Melbourne Water and Council did absolutely need to protect its people and home. Can you answer that, CEO?
Yes, I'll just respond to the question, not make a comment. A recommendation of the Maribyrnong River Flood Review is for Melbourne Water to respond to mitigation riverine flooding. Mitigation of riverine flooding will require a whole catchment approach, and we are waiting for the Melbourne Water report. It is the responsibility of Melbourne Water as the floodplain manager.
Thank you. The next question comes from Mr. Edward Merrifield, asked the following question. What is the state of the Maribyrnong City Council defending side talk on state and federal government level for housing, as we are in the housing crisis in the city of Maribyrnong? Would you like to answer
Thank you,
that?
Mayor.
Thank you.
The defence site Maribyrnong is under the control of the Commonwealth Government and the Department of Defence. The Department of Defence has identified the site as surplus to defence requirements, with a registration of interest process undertaken in late 2022. Council understands that the Department of Defence is currently testing the open market for the most cost-effective way to remediate and develop the site in accordance with the Commonwealth Property Disposal Policy. Last year, the Mayor and council officers met with the Assistant Minister and department officials. That was in 2023, I think in June, to understand the process and the time frames. We do understand the department is in the middle of a review as well of all of its sites, but at this stage there's no further information available.
Okay, thank you, CEO. Now, second question from Mr. Merrifield. What is the council doing about drinking of alcohol and drug taking in the mall on the corner of Paisley and Nicholson Street in Footscray in full view of CCTV in the disability parking? Some are drinking 6-pack of VP beer. What safety measures are in place for visitor and resident they do not feel safe? Would you like to answer that,
Thank you,
CEO?
Mayor. The mall is a declared alcohol restriction area under Part 3, Consumption of Alcohol in Public Places, under Council's General Purpose Local Law, GPLL. Council officers investigate and patrol the mall for alcohol consumption complaints. We work closely with Victoria Police to address these issues. Council, in collaboration with Victoria Police, regularly meet and identify ongoing community safety concerns in the area. Strategies are developed to address these issues or any other safety issues that may be brought to Council's attention. In addition, Victoria Police constantly patrol the area with CCTV and attend to any issues that may occur, but I would point out that public drunkenness is no longer an offence. So we are working with the different agencies, CoHealth and the Salvation Army, as well as the police, to try and assist those people and also make the area safe for traders and residents.
Okay, thank you, CEO. Question number 3 from Mr. Merrifield. What is the council doing about graffiti, drawing and poster in Footscray CBD in terms of cleaning and removing poster?
Thank you, Mayor. Council has a graffiti management program that includes the proactive weekly inspections of Footscray CBD and surrounding suburbs. In addition, council officers investigate and respond to graffiti-related requests from the community. Graffiti, including posters, is generally removed within 5 business days, whilst offensive graffiti is removed within 4 hours of notification. Council's stormwater network is serviced on a proactive cyclic program. Stormwater pits in Footscray CBD are inspected and cleared twice per annum.
Thank you. Now, next question comes from Mr. William Davison. Ask the following question. If councillors support the endorsement to remove the granitic track from the Footscray Park Western Lawn scope of work, will this call council to immediately begin the action, a contracted variation, and immediately have the contractor remove the granitic track from the playing field and for the track to be replaced with the dirt and lawn?
Without preempting the result later on in the meeting with the consideration of the notice of motion, I would say if it is resolved in the affirmative, the granitic path, which actually hasn't been fully put in yet, but the work on that will be removed from the scope of works and replaced with suitable lawn material, but I don't want to preempt the outcome of that notice of motion.
Thank you, CEO. Question number 3. In relation to Footscray Park Western Lawn, the list of 3 proposed variation of contract to provide to council by the contractor to remove the track from the Western Lawn, also including the costing for and work order to replace the granitic track with dirt and lawn. What is the council and councillor prefer variation option in their consideration for the removal of the track? Option 1, 2, or 3, and what is the full cost for that variation to be scope of work? CEO.
Again, Mayor, this notice of motion before council proposes, and this is on the public record, you can see it on your agenda there, proposes ceasing the construction of the granitic path and authorising the Chief Executive Officer to vary the current construction contract to remove the granitic path from the scope of works. Council is not considering any other contractual variations in relation to the Western Lawn, and therefore we can't respond to this question any further, and don't want to preempt the outcome of the notice of motion.
Thank you, CEO. Now, this question from Mr. Alex Bodie asked the following question. Number 1, if the notice of motion to remove the track from the scope of work is endorsed by councillors tonight, how soon can the track be removed from Footscray Park, playing field and lawn lay in its place?
Through you, Mayor, if council resolves to progress the notice of motion in the affirmative, this will be subject to options being provided by council's contractor.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, Footscray Park Western Lawn is our active use area. How soon can we expect to be able to start using it for our informal plays and off-leash dog without the truck?
Thank you, Mayor. And as we have previously advised publicly, it is anticipated that this project will be completed by June, the end of June 2024 this year, so we're a few months away.
Okay, thank you. Could I have Councillor to move the extended public question time? Councillor Carter and Councillor Clark. The motion, would the motion into the vote? Are those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, now Council has received 2 questions regarding Council's noted of motion this evening, and that's a per governance rule 52.9. These 2 questions have been granted with a single response provided. Mrs. Alex Bodie asked for the following question. The notice of motion in relation to Footscray Park, Western Lawn tonight referred to external impact on the park since 2019, especially what are those impacts?
We're going to
Sorry?
answer them both together.
Yeah,
Mayor.
okay, so I would ask another question from Mr. William Davison. Ask the following question. Tonight, notice motion in relation to the Footscray Park Western Lawn referred to external impact on the park since 2019. I am aware of the flooding and 2 drowning. Is the council aware of any other extent impact, and if so, what are they? Another one is, will external impact allow council to force the inclusion of lighting, track path, and or access on the northwestern corner of the western lawn into the new master plan if they are not supposed by the community? CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I won't preempt the outcome of the notice of motion. The notice of motion itself provides for a number of actions that Council will progress if resolved in the affirmative. This includes any review of the 2011 Master Plan, requiring further consultation with the community on any additional proposed changes to the park, including lighting, tracks, paths and the playground at the northern western corner of the western lawn.
Thank you. The next question comes from Mr. Bryson Sanderson. Ask the following question. This evening council meeting agenda contains a noted motion from Councillor Sarah Carter. Page 460 of the agenda contains the motion signed by Councillor Carter with the reference number being X66. The first arrow is also contain a requirement for the declaration assessment against human rights, which has not been completed. The second arrow, given this arrow, while the Chief Executive Officer disallowed the motion by Councillor Carter, given this arrow. CEO.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Mr. Sanderson, for your questions. I will be allowing the notice of motion to continue. We're not considering those matters errors. Clause 22.6 of Council's governance rules requires that the Chief Executive Officer must cause all notice of motion to be numbered, dated and entered in the notice of motion register in the order that they were received. The notice of motion was assigned 2024-04 and once admitted by the Chief Executive Officer. So if it's not printed in the report, it actually does have a number, and that just confirming that is the number. There is no requirement under Council's governance rules for the Human Rights Declaration to be completed. The Chief Executive Officer, myself, accepted the notice of motion in accordance with Clause 22 of Council's governance rules.
The CEO, so the second question from Mr. Brian. The contract mentioned in the motion was awarded by the Council in December 2022, at which Councillor Carter was present. The report to the Council did not contain any attachment, instead only referencing an evaluation by Council officer. What step did Councillor take to make themselves aware of the exact specification of the contract before awarding a contract for such a substantial sum?
Just in response, Mayor, councillors, as always, were provided with the evaluation report under a confidential separate cover, and that is our practice for all contracts, as it's usual practice for the awarding of contracts here at Maribyrnong City Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now the next question. Will the Chief Executive Officer take steps to ensure these issues are not repeated, with full specifications provided as part of the public award of all contracts which councillors are involved in?
Thank you, Mayor, and as I've previously mentioned, there have been no errors. Councillors were provided the evaluation report under confidential separate cover, as is the usual practice for awarding of contracts.
Thank you, CEO. There's no more other
No further
questions.
questions.
No further, I would like to declare the public question time closed. Thank you. Confirmation of the minute of previous meeting, agenda 6.1, confirmation of the minute on the 20th of February 2024. Can I call for councillor to move that minute of the ordinary council meeting held on the 20th of February 2024 to be confirmed? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Councillors, I move that Council confirms the minutes of Council meeting held on 20th of February 2024. I commend the motion to you.
Thank you. Could I call for the council to second the motion? Councillor Carter? Are there any question or point of clarification, councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved, Your Worship.
Thank you. Would the seconder would I speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Any other speaker for the motion? Any speaking for against the motion? Now I put the motion into the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion is carried. Reporting from the committee, advise councillor, there are no report from the committee to the table at this meeting tonight. Okay, the petition, advise councillor, there are no petition to be tabled at the meeting. Now, changing of order of business. With the consent of the council, I would like to propose a change to the order of business in accordance with the clause 19 of the council governance rules. Councillor, do I have your consent to bring agenda item 10.1, noted of motion, 2024-04 Western Lawn Footscray Park, forward to the next item of the business? Yes?
I'll move that
Okay,
the motion 10.1, notice of motion 2024/04 Western Lawn Footscray Park be considered as the next agenda item.
Thank you. Could I have a second for that, Councillor Tran? Yeah. Thank you. Now, thank you, Councillor. We
No.
now can proceed to
No,
the
put
item.
it to the vote.
Okay.
All
Could I
those in
put to the
favour?
vote?
Yeah.
In favour? Okay, the
Against?
motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. We now proceed to the item 10.1.
Just making sure that they can't say, hold on, there was
Okay.
no result.
Yeah.
So agenda item 10.1, not to the motion, 2024/04 Western Lawn Footscray Park. Could I call for the Councillor Sarah Carter to move the motion in regard to the agenda item 10.1?
Thank you, Mayor. The motion is that Council, with due respect for the community consultative process, Community Advisory Group 2019, the integrity of Footscray Park as historic People's Park and external impacts on the park since 2019, commits to 1, ceasing the construction of the granitic path and authorises the Chief Executive Officer to vary the current construction contract to remove the granitic path from the scope of works. 2, guaranteeing the priority of general public use of Footscray Park, inclusive of both informal and formal uses by residents and community organisations. 3, restricting use of the Western Lawns to overflow use by community sports clubs where overflow means casual and occasional use by community clubs. 4, review and update the 2011 master plan and further consult with community on any additional proposed changes to the park, including lighting, tracks, paths, the playground and the northwestern corner of the Western Lawn where accessibility is proposed to be optimised. 5, establishing a Footscray Park Advisory Committee to support the review of the 2011 master plan with the proposed terms of reference to be presented to Council meeting in May 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Could I call for Councillor to second the motion? Councillor Tran? Are there any questions or point of clarification, Councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've just got a few notes and I've just realised my writing is very small when I don't have glasses, so let's just see. Firstly, I want to address process and to provide some clarity, and this is something that's come up in discussions with councillors, and whilst we thought a motion was warranted in the chamber, to provide that clarity. But I want to acknowledge in the very first instance that the inclusion of the path as part of the Western Lawn redevelopment was not presented to the community as part of the consultations that occurred last year, and they were looking at Footscray Park in its totality. It's been quite clear that there's been a failure of process, whilst internally by some it was seen as an operational thing, and the merits associated with the park, of which I note that there are some residents who are in support of, were primarily about optimising those passive uses and increasing accessibility. The thing is, they're not operational, and they go very much against the social licence and the social contract that council created with community following not only the adoption of the 2011 master plan, but also the 2019 master plan review. And it was very clear then that a path wasn't warranted, and any discussions of that path should have been included in those community consultations that were undertaken, I believe, in August of last year. I'd have to go back to my notes, but I just want to acknowledge that because they weren't included, they should have been, and there is a disparity there around what's thought to be what can be actionable under a broad master plan, which isn't a detailed design. But first and foremost comes community consultation. I want to acknowledge that that hasn't occurred with the inclusion of the path. There's also, I'd like to acknowledge that the fact remains that council also did consider the contracts and the awarding of those contracts in the chamber, and that's been raised in question time today. And I think that's, you know, quite reasonably being questioned by members of the community. Councillors should have picked up on that, and I think we've all discussed that. The plans for the path weren't in that, but if I can speak to the many hundreds of items that we consider each year, council has an understanding that when we resolve on contracts and are operationalising any works, that it reflects master plans that we've approved and that we've adopted in the chamber. So there is a process that of review that's been undertaken to ensure that that doesn't happen again. But I want to acknowledge it because it's really important that we acknowledge the failure of process in this instance. Tonight we hope to provide clarity and assurances as to the works that are to be completed, and that's the future uses of the Western Lawn. That is around what we mean by informal and formal community use. It's meaning that this, the Western Lawn will not be home to a club in the future. We will not see a stadium built at the Western Lawn. I know there has been some fear and angst raised in the community by the very nature of the way the path was included in the contract. So the idea of bringing this into the chamber tonight is to provide that assurance in the chamber and on the public record that community use is to be prioritised. I wish to acknowledge that this motion is the culmination of many discussions amongst councillors. It wasn't just me putting forward this motion. In fact, Jorge worked on the first draft. I mean, Councillor Hawkera, I'd like to acknowledge that. But there have been many discussions, meetings about this specifically. We realise the gravity and the importance of this issue. There have been, you know, a multitude of emails, and of course a majority of councillors met with representatives of Friends of Footscray Park on site. So I want to acknowledge that this has been a collective process by all councillors to sit down, identify the issues, really consider what we would do in the position that we've found ourselves in, and to be able to best address that, plus giving the assurance to the community that any future scope of works, hence why I've included the review of the master plan, will be consulted on with community. I also want to acknowledge that the process of this has caused some reputational damage and some damage to that social licence between councillors specifically and the community. I want to apologise for my part for any damage to that relationship, because certainly, and it saddens me that it takes away from what really is a wonderful investment. This is the long-held, realisation of a long-held aspiration of our community to see the Western Lawn restored to immaculate condition that can be used for future generations, and it really does sadden me that it's detracted from that, because that's something that we can all celebrate, and I'm very proud to have been part of a council that has delivered that significant investment and outcome. So councillors, I would urge you to support the motion.
This is Councillor Carter. Would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Only briefly, Mayor, I think Councillor Guide has spoken quite eloquently and has covered a lot of the bases in relation to this. What I would like to acknowledge, in particular with the motion, is that it's not simply just an apology as to the lack of process in some of these situations and indeed the community consultation. It presents a solution. It presents an opportunity for us to bring forward an advisory committee that is proposed within the motion, but more important than that, it proposes an opportunity for us to rectify something that should have been done initially. It's not just council and councillors acknowledging a past error, but indeed wanting to rectify that and indeed trying to prevent that from happening ever again. We know about the past and historical issues in relation to trusts with Footscray Park, and it's a mistake that council does not want to be making again. We've made it here, we've acknowledged that, but it's something we wish to avoid. I was not on council at that time when the whole Footscray Park debacle happened, but I think every resident was very well aware of that, from the old to the young to those who couldn't even see. We were all very well aware, and it's something we wish to avoid. I will also like to acknowledge the work of Councillor O'Kara in helping prepare, as Councillor Carter said, the initial draft, and indeed the assistance of all the councillors in preparing this. I do apologise again that I was absent during that conference that was held with Friends of Footscray Park, but councillors did relay the message to me as to the conversations that were had, and this motion is the result of those conversations. It's carefully considered, carefully crafted, and more importantly than that, it takes the community's concerns into mind. It's not drafted to be an apology, like I said. It's drafted to be, hopefully, a solution and indeed a path forward for Footscray Park, not just for the Footscray Master Plan, but also into the future. So I commend the motion wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Train. Are there any speaker for the motion? Okay. Yeah, Councillor.
I really have, to be honest, not much to add. I think Sarah spoke in detail in support of this motion. If I was to say anything, it's really just to say I'm very happy that we've got in the wording of this motion reference to the integrity of Footscray Park as that historic people's park, which is actually a phrase used in the Master Plan of 2011, and that's, 2011, and that's, I think, all the more sort of clarified, if you like, given some of the issues, clarified in points 2 and 3 of the motion, and of course point 1 basically remedies the war that we'd hit, or the problem that we'd hit, and then points 4 and 5 allow for that ongoing consultation around what is our historic people's park. So I think in that sense, I really don't have much to add to what Sarah's already said.
Okay. All right, okay. Any other speaker for the motion? So any speaker against the motion? Now I put the motion into the vote. All those in favour?
Did you want to speak?
Yeah,
I think
I
Benedict was
thought
going to
so.
Oh, is it?
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were, doing.
Oh, okay.
So you hold back the vote because you haven't declared anything
Okay,
yet.
all right.
You
Okay.
didn't count.
You did not yet, still counting.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, look, I
look around.
I just
Okay.
wanted to say briefly, just around, I think as part of this process, the conversations that that the council has had with community, but on our own, as councillors as well, just in terms of
the things that have changed, like the last 3 or 4 years as well, have been like significant change. There's a number of issues, the flood, you know, the main one, things that have sort of impacted as well on, and having a bit of a relook, or having a relook at the 2011 master plan. So hopefully, you know, it's not just the things that are listed there, but it's kind of that the broader look at the master plan, given where we've sort of moved from since 2019 as well, and the impacts that have, even in the last 1 or 2 or 18 months, that have happened. Some of the questions that we had tonight as well relate to that. So, you know, we are really keen to sort of open it, whilst we've got the suggestion of the advisory committee, we are also inviting anyone who's interested to have a look and get involved in the consultation process, which will be a really important outcome as part of this whole process. So,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Are there any speaker for the motion? Okay. Are there any speaker against the motion? Now I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? No. I declare the motion is carried. Now we'll proceeding to the office's report. I call for the council to move the motion in regard to agenda item 9.1,
Comes up.
annual community survey, 2023.
Yeah, thank
Councillor
you.
Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, I move that Council note the findings of the Maribyrnong City Council 2023 Annual Community Survey as shown at attachment 1. I commend this motion to you, Councillors.
Thank you. Could I call for the councillor to the second the motion? Councillor Crawford. Are there any questions or point of clarification?
We want to wait until everyone's...
Okay. Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just briefly, Your Worship. Councillors, I'm very pleased to actually move this motion this evening. The 20th Annual Community Survey was conducted again by Metropolis Research on behalf of Council, and they first started this work for us in 2004. The object of the research is to measure the level of community satisfaction with a range of services and facilities, aspects of governance, leadership, planning and development, customer service, and in fact, councillors, the overall performance of council. I, Your Worship, am absolutely delighted to say that the overall satisfaction with council's performance increased to 6.9%, which is considered a good level of community satisfaction, and councillors is in fact a 13% increase in level of community satisfaction since 2004 when the survey first commenced. We've also seen a remarkable increase in very satisfied respondents, with a further decline in dissatisfaction, and that's in fact a new record low of 7%. So this very much reflects on the performance of council in addressing the overwhelming majority of community concerns. I've got to say, councillors, the same 8 services and facilities as last year received a score measurably higher than average this time round. The fortnightly recycling, weekly garbage collection, fortnightly green waste collection, annual hard rubbish collection, library services, the great Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, which we continue to try and develop and improve, provision and maintenance of playgrounds, and the additional paid hard rubbish collection. These were acknowledged as real successes for this particular council. I've also got to say, councillors, the 2023 survey also indicates a shift away from how the community is wanting to in fact engage with council. Historically, it has been face-to-face. Today, we find that only 9% of respondents actually reported contacting council in person. Over 90% of the contacts are using the electronic social media systems that we have access to. Councillors, this is an overall outstanding result for this council, and I want to commend the council as it in our final year on a tremendous job well done. But I particularly wanted to thank the CEO, our executive leadership team, and the rank and file workers right throughout the organisation. What a fantastic effort from our frontline reception staff to our parks and gardens people, garbage collection, maintenance workers. Fantastic job. So on behalf of this council, thank you all so much for a fantastic collective effort. Without your efforts, we wouldn't have achieved the results that we have. A job well done. On behalf of council, I thank you all, and councillors, I commend this motion to you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Just to support Councillor Clark's sentiments. You know, the organisation's done well again this year. We seem to be generally sort of notching up, improving our performance year on year, so it's always really impressive to see.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Would any other speaker for the motion? Okay, this time I look out very carefully. I don't even know. I'll have to say a few words. Firstly, I would like to thank you, Director Lisa King and her team, to working tirelessly about this survey, community satisfaction survey. I think I am own way would like to provide the best service to the community, and that is where we can measure that how, you know, positive, negative, that we provide, and, you know, we always improving every year, and the level of satisfaction is increased and decreasing of dissatisfaction. This is great to see that. We not even, you know, are satisfied that now we're going to win better and better every year. So, and I agree with Councillor Clark that thank you so much for the CEO and also her team to work in that, and we concentrate on that because we want to be, you know, we treat the customer, the residents just like the king, and we support and we own way listen and moving forward to making better for all the community and the residents, and thank you so much for that. So, any speaker against the motion? Okay, now I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? No, I declare the motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Agenda item 9.2, review of election period policy. Can I call for the councillor to move the motion in regard to agenda item 9.2? Councillor Thomas?
That Council 1 endorse the release of the draft election period policy as shown in attachment 1 for community engagement, and 2, notes that a further report on the draft election period policy will be presented to Council following community engagement, recommending adoption of the policy to come into effect for the 2024 council election.
Thank you. Could I call for the councillor to second the motion? Councillor Carter? Are there any questions or point of clarification, councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just only to say that it's really, you know, in Australia we're really lucky to have all of our elections for local, state and federal government done in a way that is independent and thoroughly sort of overseen by either of the election commissions, the Australian or the Victorian, and in our case in local government, you know, we also have a role to play in making sure that the processes are sound and that people who vote can be confident that we have a solid and sound, you know, framework, or in this case a policy to that guides decisions and guides how councillors conduct themselves during that period and how staff conduct themselves. So it might seem like a a little bit of a dry policy, but it's actually really important. So thanks to the officers for making updates and bringing the policy to us for our consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you. Would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Okay, are there any speaker for the motion? Are there any speaker against the motion? Now I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Now again, I declare the motion is carried. Agenda item 9.3, review of public transparency policy, privacy policies, live streaming and recording of meeting policy, how record policy and public issue disclosure procedure. Can I call for the council to move the motion in regard to item agenda 9.3? Councillor Thomas again.
Okay, that Council 1 endorse the release of the reviewed public transparency policy as shown at attachment 1 for the purpose of community engagement. 2, notes of the further report on the public transparency policy will be presented to Council following community engagement, recommending adoption of the policy. 3, adopt the following reviewed Council policies. Privacy policy as shown at attachment 2, live streaming and recording of meetings policy is shown at attachment 3, and health records policy is shown at attachment 4. And 4, resolve that the public interest disclosure procedure is archived as a council policy and now the remit and responsibility of the Chief Executive Officer effective 20 March 2024.
Thank you. Could I call for this councillor to second the motion? Councillor Crawford. Are there any questions or point of clarification, councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Only again to sort of echo what I said earlier, that these policies are what guides strong governance of council, and we need them, and we need the community to understand firstly that they exist, and secondly how they operate, but to also give us feedback to make sure that they're meeting sort of community expectations as well. So again, they're things that we need to, the frameworks we need to work within, and it's really important that they come to councillors, but also that we engage with the community on these as well. Thanks.
Would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Thomas's thoughts or statement, in that these policies sort of make up the basis of our democracy, particularly local democracy in this sense. A lot of people talk about transparency in government, so this is our public transparency policy up for review, out for community consultation, community engagement. So while it might not be the most exciting read, it's something.
Riveting,
Wouldn't dare say that, Councillor Crawford.
It's probably not everyone's first choice for bedtime reading, but
It's probably great bedtime reading.
get you to sleep. No, it's something that is important for people to at least know that it's there and that they can view it if they choose to. And if they do want to have a look at it and give us some feedback, would be all ears. So certainly encourage that. But at least knowing that it's there and that people can view it is half of the objective done already. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speaker for the motion? Councillor Holgate.
Just wanted to make a couple of brief comments about the public transparency policy in particular, and encourage people in the community, might not be exciting reading, to have a look at it, because it's certainly something that's been on people's minds. Since COVID, the whole idea of public transparency, of government transparency, has been on people's minds, and I think this is an opportunity for our community to look at that, to look at how our council, our local government looks at that, and to make suggestions if they have them. It is, as I say, it's a sort of a subterranean community conversation, and I think it will also come to the fore around the council elections, as it did around the last state elections, so in a more sort of expressed in terms of community sentiment. So I would really encourage people to have a look at that policy in particular.
Thank you, Councillor Holgate. Any other speaker for the motion? Any speaker against the motion? Now I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? No, again, I declare the motion is carried. Agenda item 9.4, Community Recovery Committee Review and Revised Term of Reference. Can I call for the councillor to move a motion in regard to item 9.4? Councillor Carter.
As per the officer recommendation, that Council 1 approve the continuation of the Community Recovery Committee with an independent chair. 2, note the Community Recovery Review Report shown at attachment 1 and that the recommendations and future directions of the report will be addressed in the recovery plan to be developed by the committee and presented to council at a future meeting. 3, approve the revised terms of reference shown at attachment 2. And 4, note that an expression of interest process for the vacant community member positions of the Community Recovery Committee and recruitment process for the independent chair will be conducted with a further report to be presented to council to recommend the selection of committee members.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Could I call for councillor to second the motion? Councillor Trent. Are there any questions or point of clarification? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry.
Just
Question, Councillor?
Question.
Maybe I missed it because it's a lot there, but just a question. There's a lot of emphasis, understandably, on in terms of reference on the selection, and a process is outlined for the selection of an independent, capitalised, independent chairperson. Given that emphasis of an independent chairperson, is there any provision, and as I said, maybe I missed it there, once they're selected through that selection panel, for that independent chairperson to be voted upon in terms of a report, either by the committee itself or by council? So will their selection be basically endorsed, if you like, by a vote of either the committee or the council?
So could I ask Director for Infrastructure, Mr. Laurie?
Planning and Environment.
So through the thank you, Mayor. So through the chair, there will be a panel that assesses all the applications from community members and any submissions from people wishing to be the independent chair, which will be subject to kind of more like a recruitment process rather than the community members, and that will include a representative from Emergency Management Victoria, which we had previously, a community member from the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, and also a council officer at executive level. That report and recommendation will then be voted, it will then be provided back to council in a report so that council can endorse or select the committee members.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that it's obviously a really long road to recovery. And as the councillor representative on the community recovery throughout last year, and I seek to remain on that committee, the timeliness of coming together to look at the terms of reference, because this was pulled together, you know, when we first introduced, and I think I brought the motion to establish this committee, it was very soon. Some months, I think it was our first or second ordinary council meeting after the devastating floods. And so then it was, a chair was elected at that time by the committee members, and we had induction training, and part of the review that we've done 12 months on is to look at the changing needs of the community. What recovery support meant in those first few months is vastly different and somewhat more complex now as time progresses. So it's been really good to sit with the community members, noting that there was the evaluation undertaken, and recovery committee members have had input into this review. And I know from discussions with some of the community members and from the findings of the evaluation that independent chair is something that there was a majority of support for, because just to have someone slightly at arm's length, it is still a really emotive issue, as can be expected. There is still a very heavy load of trauma that is carried by residents impacted by the flood. So I think to have independence in the operationalisation of the committee is really good, and also to refine and look at what our scope is going forward. This was a timed review determined when we first adopted the terms of reference, and it was really to do that pulse check to make sure, have we got the mix right? Do we still need a community recovery committee? It was all of those things just to go. We've been doing this for, the best part, well, it was 6 months at the time of the review, I think from the March through till the October period. Have we got the balance right? And I know from that initial onset of, council providing tip vouchers and council doing clean up and collecting more of building materials that wasn't necessarily as a result of the flood, to where we are now to those community support programs that have been referenced, and really around our advocacy as well, around some of those large scale water catchment area reviews. And of course we are waiting on the release of the Melbourne Water Plan review, and to look at that and really critique that and continue our advocacy, which we have done in the last month. So I do highly recommend the continuance of this Community Recovery Committee, and I know that those members that remain are wholly committed to working through 2024 with Council.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Only to endorse the motion, Mayor, and to reiterate the words of Councillor Carter. It is a long road, and we know of residents, Councillor Carter has seen firsthand survive, the residents who, at the time, and unfortunately still now, suffer quite a bit of traumatic stress from what had occurred some 18 months ago. Many of the residents still contact myself, and I've expressed great thanks to Council continue to support them, but have indeed reiterated the fact that they continue to need support, and Council is committed, as through its advisory committee, to continue to support those community members. So I do endorse the motion.
Thank you. Are there any speaker for the motion? Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I guess, that not to forget that putting together the new terms of reference in the committee, have come from the recommendations of the report that members of the previous committee were involved in, and just want to recognise, yes, that we have that there were people who have been on the previous committee. Some of them may choose to come to nominate back again on the committee, others may not. But just to say thank you for those people who did contribute, early on and over that sort of the first 12 months, I think, of the following the floods, in what for them was obviously a really traumatic time, and we know that, as Councillor Carter said, people are still recovering, and recovery takes different ways for different people. So I just wanted to sort of recognise those people who were on the first iteration of the committee, and yes, of course, encourage people to think about returning or renominating at least, or new members, of course, nominating onto the committee as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Clark for the motion. Yep.
Yeah, for the motion. Thanks, Your Worship. Councillors, I really want to underscore the role of actually having groups like this, led by the community, led by those who've actually been impacted by the disaster, the emergency. Events like whether it's a flood or it's a major fire gives our communities that are affected a great sense of being out of control. Apart from the fact that there is the psycho-emotional impact that I can say, councillors, can be lifelong. I've seen this having worked directly with people who've come back from tours of duty, particularly in Vietnam. 50 years on, they may have left, or rather they may have come home, but they never left the war. Events like floods can be with you for a lifetime. So the mental health needs of the communities that are affected by major events, really, it can help immeasurably if those people have a sense of being able to impact and impact positively on their future. And by having community-led recovery, community working hand in glove with authorities such as the local government authority and the various state institutions, it gives the community, it gives the individual a sense of agency, a sense that they can affect things for the better. This can only aid and abet one's mental health. I can only commend the motion to you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other speaker for the motion? I'd like to share with you some of the experience that thank you so much, wholeheartedly to thank you for the community involvement on the committee and supporting people, the victim of the flood. In my teenager, when I was young in overseas, and I also involved on the Red Cross, and I remember that I would help people with fire and flood as well, so I'll bring back my memory. Now here, only about 10 kilometers from Maribyrnong to the city, and we got a flood here. I could not believe it. And I mean, it's my heart breaking when I see that. I mean, you know, you only been through that, you understand how hard and how difficult, and I would share and sympathize with people who are the victim of the flood. So, you know, and what can we do as a human being? So we just have to brave, you know, for these people getting over with that hurdle, when that sort of stress. So I wish the best. So any other speaking against the motion? Now I put the motion into the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Agenda item 9.5, nomination of the Councillor representative and endorsement of industry representative to the Maribyrnong Business, Economic Development and Innovation Advisory Panel. Could I call for the Councillor to move the motion in regarding to that item 9.5? Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I appreciate the opportunity to move this.
There are, the recommendation require 2 councillors and the mayor to be on this.
Right.
So,
Councillors, I move that Council 1 approves the following councillor appointment for the Maribyrnong Business, Economic Development and Innovation Advisory Panel, effective 19 March 2024. That being A, the Mayor, Councillor Michael Clark, and Councillor Sarah Carter, as representatives to the Maribyrnong Business, Economic Development and Innovation Advisory Panel. 2, approves the following industry representatives for the Maribyrnong Business, Economic Development and Innovation Advisory Panel, effective from 19 March 2024. A, Ms Cherie Warwick of Kindred Studios. B, Mr Alex
Give your best shot, Councillor Clark.
Kachkukian of Red Herring Digital, Mr Vincent Vu of Rubik Studios, and Rockio Rutter of Kellogg Brown and Root Proprietary Limited. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
thank you, Councillor Clark. Could I call for Councillor to second the motion? Councillor Carter?
Oh, okay,
sorry.
yep, I
Yeah.
have a question though.
have a
Sorry,
question.
but I will second it.
Okay. Yeah, your question, and then a question upon clarification. Your question?
It's both really, and I think following our meeting or discussion about this at briefing, I just want to confirm that it is an advisory committee, that isn't a decision-making, only because I remember flagging at the time when we discussed who would be nominated if we could possibly interchange, just because of the conflict with work schedules, and there weren't other nominations. Well, it was conflicting with other people's schedules. So I believe the understanding was that Michael and I could interchange and work with each other, but if it's not required as part of a quorum for a vote, basically I'm asking, is there flexibility there, and is this a decision-making body?
In regard to a decision, well, yes, there is flexibility, that's my understanding, although you've both been nominated, so it's not a, it's an advisory committee to council.
Yeah.
It's not under the Act a separate
Instrument.
delegated
Yeah.
committee, it's an advisory committee. So 2 councillors are nominated. I might just refer to the Director, Planning and Environment. I don't know that there's
Through the
no
mayor.
special
No,
requirements
I
for
think
those
you covered it,
councillors
so we can, we can just work it out.
in terms of attendance
Yeah.
or...
I just
yeah.
wanted to be clear, because I thought it was the mayor plus 1 councillor, and
Yeah.
we were both going to nominate and then proxy to one another if we couldn't make it. But as long as it's not required for a quorum, I'm absolutely happy with that.
That was my understanding.
It's not required for a
Yeah.
quorum.
Okay. Yep, so with the move, I would like to speak to the motion.
Oh, yeah, just to say, Your Worship, councillors, the ongoing economic development of the city of Maribyrnong isn't something that occurs in an evolutionary sense. It's not going to occur in an evolutionary sense if we want to see it occur successfully. It requires strategic planning. And in that particular context, what we require is representatives from the community, from industry, and I must say the representatives, and I can speak to Ms Cherie Warwick of Kindred Studios, who I've had a little bit to do with in the past, a remarkable person who really is, for me, an exemplar of what we should be looking to in the future as someone, or the type of person that is going to drive the change, the economic change that is so critical for the success of the city of Maribyrnong as we continue our march in the 21st century towards economic prosperity, towards economic reform. So I look to the business community to become active in this space to assist us with providing a vision, and a vision that is grounded in the experience of those who have skin in the game, those who have industry knowledge, skill and experience. It's in that context, Your Worship, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would the second would like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that I'm really pleased, even if my question caused some confusion, to be nominated. It's just really important, obviously, when we take on additional commitments, that we're very clear about the demands of those commitments.
Yeah.
But you know, working with traders and having been on the formerly known as Enterprise Committee is actually one of the greatest joys. I love working with traders, and I like, discussing economic development, and that innovation piece really came to the fore when I was mayor during the first year of lockdown. That's a place when we really, traders were hurting, getting together to look at, how businesses, were being stifled by the lockdowns. What could we do? And we had, additional business improvement district programs. I think I just got that acronym wrong, although it is called BID. Business improvement development, and looking at ways, so activations and things like that, the things that we can increase participation, increase movement, but also trader support. We've really bumped up our support of all the trader associations, and we're offering free memberships, and there's so much that we can do to not only just do, to do the big piece thinking, which is looking at our placemaking and what attracts people to visit, but also through those initiatives that are led by traders and led by local business and industry as well, that have an idea to respond to some of the challenges that they may be facing in the economic environment. So I'm really looking forward to what I believe is an improved structure to what we've formerly had. And I think, again, there's been consultation with those members and a review of that. So I think that process of constant review and making sure that anything that we're doing is fit for purpose and fit for the times is really important. And again, that consultation. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Will any speaker for the motion? Okay, so any speaker against the motion? I would put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion's carried. Agenda item 9.6, Australian Local Government Association 2024 National General Assembly motion. Can I call for the councillor to move the motion in regard to this item 9.6? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, I move that Council endorse the motions for the 2024 Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly as outlined below. 1, motions 1 to 4 as shown in table 1 of this report, and 2, motion 5, humanitarian crisis in Gaza as follows. The National General Assembly calls on the Australian Government, 1, to continue to fund the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, brackets UNRWA in brackets, and provide assurance that Australia is not selling weapons to Israel. 2, to advocate for the immediate release of hostages still held by Hamas. 3, to advance the cause of peace by demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire, demanding the immediate lifting of the siege of Gaza to allow for the unrestricted passage of essential food, health and all other basic supplies to the population. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Okay, could I call for the council to second the motion?
Could I foreshadow a motion?
Okay, so councillor.
Yep.
Okay.
Just foreshadowing a motion that motion 5 read instead, that is the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Excuse me,
Yep.
councillor. Yes, you can
Foreshadow,
foreshadow a
yeah.
motion. If this motion is lost,
Oh, then I
we'd
can
like
read
to
it.
After.
foreshadow
Yeah, sorry,
a
sorry,
further
sorry.
motion.
Yeah,
sure.
thank you, thanks. Okay, could I call for the second to the motion? Councillor to second. Councillor Tran? Yeah. Are there any questions or point of clarification? Yeah, councillor?
I know Councillor Hawker can't speak to his motion now, but if he speaks against this motion, he can explain why he's speaking against it and what he would like to
Yeah,
propose.
if the motion's lost.
No, just
No,
speaking against this motion now,
Yeah, okay.
potentially.
Councillor Crawford is
course you can.
correct. Yes.
Yes.
Of course,
Yeah, of course you
can
can.
say what he likes.
So then councillor Hawke now, yeah?
No, not yet.
Not
So just any further questions or
Any
clarification?
further question or clarification? No? Yep.
And then would the
Okay.
mover like to speak to the motion?
Okay, Councillor Clark, would you like to
Uh-huh.
speak to the motion,
Yeah, thanks,
please?
Your Worship. Councillors, we've got a suite of motions that we are putting to the Australian Local Governments Association. I do make the point, councillors, that whilst we put these motions forward this evening, if they're passed, whether or not they're adopted in isolation as each individual motion standing on its own, or they are incorporated in a larger consolidated motion, or they are in fact not accepted by the Australian Local Governments Association. This is beyond the purview of this council. All we can do is forward this material. In terms of the items that we're considering here this evening, action on air pollution, I think it's without question that we need to see a transition to zero emissions. We need to see clear policy reform in relation to the transitioning from diesel to electric diesel. Mandatory heavy vehicle emissions standards. Again, I won't go into the detail of each of the motions, but suffice to say, we need motions that are we need standards in place at a national level that are going to assist the health and well-being of our community. And when we talk about action on air pollution, this is what we are aiming to do, make a difference. The levels of asthma in our city alone are unacceptable. We are the forerunner of things to come if we don't have these matters addressed at a national level. Digital data, technology and cyber security, we really need to ensure that the privacy of us all is preserved. We call on the Australian Government to provide meaningful financial support to assist local government areas to become smarter cities, using technology, data and innovation to improve our service delivery and make our communities a better place to live. This is particularly important, this next item here, councillors. We call on the National General Assembly to call on the Australian Government to support community-led planning and initiatives for emergency management. As I've spoken earlier here this evening, councillors, we need to give our community a sense of agency. We need to give those people who've been traumatised a sense that they can change their situation. I think that the notion of a community-led emergency initiative, emergency recovery, goes a long way to addressing that particular psycho-emotional need. I want to also say, councillors, our support for asylum seekers and refugees. Again, in this city, we have been the beneficiaries of asylum seekers, of refugees. The fact is, councillors, if it wasn't for the Vietnamese community post the Vietnam War, we embracing that community, if we didn't do that, the city of Maribyrnong, Footscray CBD would not be the vibrant place that it is today and continues to be. We need to look and ensure that those who come to this country actually do have access to study, that they do have access and the rights to general and mental health services, and that they are given a pathway to future residency. In relation to the Gaza question, councillors, the fact is, no one is right, and it appears to me that so many are wrong. What we need to see is a humanitarian response that restores hope, that ensures the life, the well-being of the community of particularly Gaza, that hope and well-being is preserved. We call for an immediate ceasefire. No question about it. In turn, we also have to call on the release of the hostages. What happened, or what's happening in Gaza, would not have happened if the attack of October 7th didn't occur. We don't want to see this. We don't want to see anyone put at risk, let alone lose their life. But at the same time, the response, I must say, by Israel is beyond the pale. I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but the fact is, councillors, no, enough is enough. We need to see the lifting of the siege on Gaza. We need to see that food is restored and the health and well-being of the Palestinian people is preserved. Councillors, I commend the motions to you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would the seconder would like to speak to the motion?
I would, Mayor, I think Councillor Clark has spoken quite well to motions 4 and motions 5 indeed. And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe motion 4 was drafted with some inspiration from the local ARC as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, with the local refugee asylum seekers resource centre.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate their assistance with the inspiration and their guidance in particular, and the Mayor's initiative on that particular motion as well. Indeed, I do note that, Mayor, that was your inspiration to bring the motion forward, and I do commend you for it, especially given your
Refugee background.
well, no more than that, Mayor. I think your status in the refugee community as well. I do note, just for the community's benefit, motion 3 is something which we have been attempting to champion for quite a while, and indeed feel that it is not just a pain felt just by our community. That's the reason we've brought these motions to ALGA. We think these particular motions are felt by a lot of the community as well, a lot of other communities around Australia, not just in Victoria. I also looked to the data and digital technology and the cybersecurity components as well. We know that many city councils, and so you're correct me if I'm wrong, City of Maribyrnong has not been subject to any cyber.
No.
Yes, luckily our cybersecurity team is actually quite good. But I know
Today.
yes, indeed. I know a lot of other city councils have been subject of scams and indeed subject to data breaches. Obviously, city councils are not the only ones that are subject to it. Larger private organisations have been. We want to protect our residents, their privacy, and protect their data as much as possible. In relation to motion 1, that is inspired indeed by the Great Institute Truck Plan, but more importantly, we all live in the city of Maribyrnong. We all know about the continuous and large quantity of AAs and BBs that come through our city. We've worked alongside the state government, and we continue to appreciate the support in the conversations and indeed in the structuring of plans for how trucks will interact with our city. But it's not just unique to our city alone. Air pollution and indeed air pollution as a result of vehicles is something experienced by every city, every metro municipality. So we bring this ALGA knowing fully well that it is a motion that is a sentiment, that probably better worded, that is shared amongst multiple city councils, not just within the Victorian state, but also within New South Wales, Western Australia, Queensland, and the territories as well.
National significance.
Indeed, of national significance, and we commend the motions. Indeed, those ones in particular. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any speaker for the motion? Okay. Any speaker against the motion? I would put, yep, Councillor.
Thanks for the
Okay.
advice,
Yep.
Councillor Crawford.
Advice was a question.
Look, obviously, I agree in terms of this motion, supporting the five motions inclusive to the ALGA conference, and as has been stated by Councillor Clark, these are obviously essentially of an advocacy nature. The reason I'm speaking against it is not because of the first 4 motions in that report, because I wholly support those. And actually, if I had time, I'd speak more in particular to the action on air pollution and support for asylum seekers, but I'll support all 4. I wanted to speak, though, more to 5, not because I don't support most of what's there. I think that's a fine motion, but I was keen to do 2 things in if I'd had the opportunity to foreshadow a motion, keen to do, 1, to update that motion. We're looking at an ALGA conference, it's in 3 months' time. So 1, to update in the context of things that have happened, some good things that have happened, like, for example, the Australian government, like following a number of other governments, reinstituting the funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. So I wanted to update it, but also to, I think, make it as consistent as possible with our existing resolution. Now, I know there was a lot of debate about that, but our existing resolution of Council condemned Israel's genocidal war in Palestine and, I quote, called for an end to all military, economic, political and diplomatic ties with the State of Israel until it complies with its obligations under international law. So I wanted to ensure that consistency to our resolution. And as I said, I think in terms of updating it, yes, commend the Australian government for reinstating that funding, but also to contextualise it, that funding is roughly in the $30 million bracket. Contrast to the close to billion funding to the Iranian war effort, justified in terms of the aggression they faced. But given that we are now, according to every credible agency in the world, facing a mass famine in Palestine, I thought we could say something in terms of increasing that funding. So it was really more to update it was the reason to foreshadow.
Thank you. Okay. Now would the motion? Anyone against the motion? Now I put
4.
4.
Yeah.
4. Yeah, 4.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
finish the 4.
Yeah.
You want to say 4? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to reflect on, because there have been two positions put forward on, and I'm just going to speak to the Gaza motion that's included in the group ALGA motions. And I think it's really important, because I want to acknowledge Councillor Hawker. I understand that you wanted further detail in the substantive motion that would be put to ALGA. But I do honestly, and this was something that I raised when the first motion was brought into the chamber, I really do feel like we're wading into waters far beyond the remit of local government, without the knowledge or the expertise or the authority to speak to, you know, increasing the humanitarian visa class availability, increasing the funding, and I think in your motion it was to the amount, I'd have to go back to it, that was given, has been provided by the Australian government to Ukraine. Now, you're right, that's $790 million, but $610 million of that has been specifically for military assistance. So it is a really different dynamic, and as someone who works for one of the oldest humanitarian agencies in the world, Independent Humanitarian, and works very closely with DFAT, I just don't feel like it's our place in this chamber to kind of say, well, we should be doing like for like. Every conflict is different. The needs in every conflict are very different. So I appreciate the sentiment, but for me being comfortable, that's far beyond the remit of what I feel comfortable discussing in this chamber. And I do worry, residents have raised with me, there is overwhelming support for a lasting ceasefire. I stand here as a humanitarian saying that I support that. We need unfettered access, you know, we need to get aid into Gaza, and that has obviously, you know, it's restricted, it's just not happening, and people are starving to death. It is a catastrophic outcome of this, what is now a protracted crisis. So I absolutely support those, but when it comes to advocating for a specific amount of a visa class, and that visa class is actually capped, so I'd have to go back to look at that, but I mean, it has been used for Afghan and Ukrainian refugees. It's a 3-year temporary visa. I forgot the number, so you've got that. But also just that, when it comes to spending, that's something I believe that the Department of Foreign Affairs should be responsible for qualifying and quantifying for the benefit of councillors, and it was something I raised in our discussions last Monday. I did seek clarification from the Minister for Foreign Affairs via our Federal Member of Parliament on the status of weapons to Israel and the provision of those, and I have this response. The Australian government has been clear on the matter on defence exports to Israel, and the facts have been laid out in the Senate and by defence officials in Senate estimates. Australia has not supplied weapons to Israel since the conflict began, and for at least the past 5 years. Australia has a stringent export control framework which is designed to ensure our military and dual-use items are used responsibly outside of Australia. The framework applies to a wide range of goods and technology as well, including items used for civilian and commercial purposes. Australian Defence undertakes a rigorous assessment for each export application. This includes determining if there is an overriding risk the export may be used in ways contrary to Australia's national interests or international obligations. If this risk is identified, Defence refuses the permit. As a matter of course, this framework accounts for changes in the strategic environment to ensure exports continue to align with our international obligations. And I'll finish with this point because it speaks also to our discussion around a ban on the sales of those arms. It is a very detailed response, and Australia is also party to and fully implements all major international arms controls treaties, including the Arms Trade Treaty. The government introduced that into Parliament in November 2023. The Defence Trade Controls Amendment Bill 2023 strengthens Australia's export controls framework. So I think a simplistic ban, and that's when I worry that in the chamber we're using these terms about issues that really are the remit of the federal government and the Department of Foreign Affairs, and also and Trade, of course, well, Department and Trade, because that's what it's called, and also for security and defence. So I just wanted to outline that because there was some confusion around what the status was, but there is clarification that Australia has not sold or traded in arms to Israel for the past 5 years. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Anyone for or against the motion? I might like to say a few words about for the motion. I mean, we are very lucky in this area that we are welcoming refugee zone, and also we do have Asylum Seeker Resource Centre who's working tirelessly to supporting a refugee community here for many years, and I spoke to the CEO about that. I think I have been growing up, to the war, and I really, the war is one or the other. It's horrible. It's for people not. It's I give people it's not a joyful or peaceful. The war is terrible for everyone. So now I will put we have for and again. I would put the motion into the vote. All those in favour? All those against? So I declare the motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. The next agenda, 9.7, Municipal Association of Victoria, May 2024. State Council motion. I will call for the councillor to move the motion in regard to the agenda item 9.7. Could I call for the councillor Clark?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Councillors, I move that Council approve the motions for submission to the May 2024 Municipal Associations of Victoria State Council meeting as shown at table 1 of this report. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would I call for councillor to second the motion? Councillor Carter? Any question or point of clarification, councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, we've got a number of motions here, 2, 3, 4 motions. Firstly, in relation to the treaty with the First Nations people, again, digital, data, digital and cyber security, again, community-led emergency management planning and the implementation of infrastructure, bus reforms and recommendations. Without going through all of them, I just want to speak to the very first motion that we're putting, which is we call on the MAV, or that the MAV call on all levels of government to support the First Nations treaty process. Councillors, the reason why we actually had this motion and we've passed the resolution supporting this in this chamber, but we're asking that this matter be taken up at a state level because of what appeared to be the wholesale political opportunism by the leader of the opposition, Mr. Pasuto, and the coalition opposition in no longer supporting treaty in the state of Victoria. You know, our First Nations people have a history that's easily pointed to some 60,000 years of existence. We are the newcomers. At very least, and I'm happy to say, yes, I'm part of the colonials who settled here, or my forebears were, but we need to acknowledge that the First Nations people were here well before us. And there needs to be an acknowledgement of the hurt. There needs to be an understanding that there has to be reparation. You know, the Uluru Statement of the Heart, which calls on people to hear the voices of the First Nations people, to go through a truth-telling process, This is critical, I think, as part of the healing process. So for the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Pisuto, to turn around and say, oh no, we're not going to support this any longer, again, I think an action undertaken very clearly to try and secure political advantage as a result of the outcome of the referendum on the voice. But how mean-spirited is this?
Councillor Clark, you have 1 minute.
Thank you
half minute.
kindly.
Thank you.
I find I'm not angry, I'm just sad. I'm sad that anyone would use something like a treaty to gain political advantage. Councillors, all motions that we're putting forward to the MAV, I think, are laudable and stand on their own. I commend the motions to you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would a second would like to speak?
Formally moved.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded.
Are there any
Can tie,
speaker
Councillor.
for the motion? Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. Just like to speak about the first one and the last one. Completely agree with what Councillor Clark said in regards to, I guess, finding a peace with our First Nations people. Obviously, we're not at war with them, but you know, they might argue that we haven't gained peace yet because, you know, we invaded their land and we've never had any form of peace treaty. So that's really what this is about bringing everyone who lives on this land together to be at peace and to be able to work together for a collaborative future, which we won't have until we have treaty with our First Nations people. So it is essential. It's my belief that the vote against the voice was more through fear because people didn't understand exactly what was being proposed, and I fear that will be used again in this case to try to stop movement towards treaty. But for me, it's just we're currently on the wrong side of history. We need to get on the right side of history, and we won't do that until we get to treaty. So I think that's essential. The other point about the buses, buses could be a fantastic part of our community. At the moment, they're not. They're underfunded. The system is flawed, I think it's fair to say. We need to vastly improve our bus service, and that could bring some really important improvements to our community. Firstly, for people who can't drive, make it accessible, make it affordable, make it convenient, and that will then solve a lot of issues for those who do drive. Can bring down congestion, bring down our parking issues, make our streets safer. So yes, I'm very passionate about that recommendation as well.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Any other speaker for the motion? Any speaker against the motion? I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, I declare the motion is carried. Agenda item 9.8, Councillor Support and Expenses October to December 2023. Can I call for the councillor to move a motion in regard to this item 9.8? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Councillors, I move the Council notes the Council Support and Expense Report for October 2023 to December 2023 period to be made available via Council website for the term of the Council.
Thank you. Could I call for the second, Councillor, the second motion? Councillor Thomas? Are there any questions upon of clarification, Councillor? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the second would like to speak for the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Are there any speaker against the motion? I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion is carried. Agenda item 9.9, Governance Report, February 2024. Could I call for the councillor to move a motion in regard to agenda item 9.9? Councillor? Which councillor? Councillor Crawford.
The council notes the February 2024 governance report containing the record of informal meetings of councillors and councillor delegates to be made available on council's website for the term of the current council.
Could I call for the council to the second motion? Councillor Clark, are there any questions or point of clarification? Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the second would like to speak for the motion?
Formally second.
Okay, any other speaker for the motion? Anyone speak for the against the motion? I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Agenda item 9.10, reappointment. Reappointment of independent member of Chief Executive Officer Employment Matter Advisory.
Sorry, Mayor, can we just make
Wait, I
sure
think you should wait for
the
the
chief
Wait for the executive
out
to
the
move out of the room. That's right.
Just behind.
Conflict of interest. Could I call for the councillor to move a motion in regard to the agenda item 9.10? Councillor Clark?
No. Thanks, Your Worship. Councillors, I move that Council 1 reappoints Mr Philip Shanahan as the independent member of the Chief Executive Officer Employment Matters Advisory for a 2-year term concluding on 15 March 2026, and 2, sets the remuneration of the independent member at a rate of $150 per hour, brackets excluding GST, end brackets. I commend the motion to you.
Thank you. Could I call for the councillor to second the motion? Councillor Crawford? Are there any questions or point of clarification? No. Would the mover would like to speak to the motion?
Unbelievably quickly on this one, Your Worship, but just to say that Mr Philip Shanahan has been the independent member assisting council on our employment matters in relation to our Chief Executive for the last couple of years. I think it's 2 years. I see clarification. Thank you, Ms King. I think he's done a fantastic job. I don't mind saying, for those who aren't aware, Mr Shanahan was at one stage the Chief Executive here at the City of Maribyrnong. He comes again with an enormous portfolio of experience, and we can only benefit from his wisdom that is grounded in practice. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you. Would the seconder would like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker for the motion? Anyone speak against the motion? I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay. I declare a motion is carried.
Are we getting the Chief Executive back?
Yes.
He's just fled after hearing about what you just said.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Mr Shanahan, you need a tough critic.
Now,
Well, so I'm gonna say-
councillor question time. We now move into the councillor question time. Questions asked by councillor must be in accordance with the rule 53.5 of the governance rule, and the question might be disallowed if not in accordance with the rule. Councillor question time is limited to 15 minutes unless an extension is resolved by councillor. Is any question? Yeah, councillor Tran?
Councillor Lam, it's my understanding that indeed yourself has been nominated to the local government mayoral advisory panel. Is that indeed?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Tran. Yeah, I would like to share with you that recently, last week, I have been appointed to be a local government advisory. It's called Local MAP, Local Advisory Panel, for the Minister of Local Government, Melissa Hong. So, yeah, for 1 year term until the end of the mayor's term. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Your
for
Worship.
asking.
Your Worship. Well done.
Thank you for asking. Thank you. There's no
I
question.
have one further question,
Sorry,
sorry,
yeah.
Mayor. Rather to the to Mr Patrick Jess, my understanding is that this week, indeed until the 14th of April, is the Maribyrnong Get Active Expo. For the sake of the community's benefit, Mr Jess, what can the community expect over the coming month?
Okay, Mr. Jess?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Trent. Well, lots of fun for starters, lots of free activities. physical activity. No, it really is a great initiative, one that's been growing over the years, and participation numbers have been increasing each year as well. So hopefully we get lots more this year and the community gets to enjoy it. Thank you, Councillor Tran.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's just no
you.
further questions from me.
Mr. Jeff, yes, Councillor Hogan, yep.
Wondering if either, well, the Mayor, yourself, or CEO can maybe tell us, just earlier in question time, in public question time,
Yeah.
we had reference to discussions we've had with DTP and the Minister for Roads and Safety on Roads around the 40k speed limit and support for that, more or less, in the side streets that make up the Joseph's Road precinct, or at least the main ones. My understanding was that there was also discussions with both of those entities, well, the DTP and the Minister, around also a 40-kilometre speed limit for Hopkins Street in that zone. Is that correct?
So the discussion was around Hopkins Street, so that obviously the Hallenstein Street, Hopkins Street corner, and that whatever the distance is between those. And I would have to refer to the Director of Infrastructure, who's been in the further conversations with DTP about the other streets.
Thank you, and through the Chair, that's correct, Councillor Hall-Kukera. So we're looking at the precinct as a whole, so expanding beyond Hopkins Street and surrounding the whole surrounding network in terms of an area 40 zone.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more question, I declare the council question time is closed. Urgent business, do we have any urgent business, Councillor? Okay, if not, then proceed.
Confidential.
Yeah, okay, the confidential business. Any confidential business, Councillor? No, if not, I declare the meeting closed at 9 o'clock p.m. Thank you.